Right, well, just one airline presently in India which is flying this aircraft, SpiceJet. Jet Airways, though they have a handful of them, have not been operating the MAX 8 aircraft. That's because of financial constraints. But SpiceJet has been operating these aircraft. They operate 13 of them. There were operations as usual for SpiceJet today, but at a time when several countries, as we've been reporting, and several airlines have been saying no as far as immediate operations are concerned of the Boeing 737 MAX aircraft. The big question is this: what exactly is India doing? What exactly is the Directorate General of Civil Aviation doing in allowing flights of this particular aircraft, not just as far as SpiceJet is concerned, but also in terms of overflights of this aircraft or operations by other airlines in India of this particular aircraft, because it's now the United Kingdom, it's Singapore, it's Australia, it's several other countries as well, which have said that as far as this aircraft is concerned, they should not be allowed to operate. Well, there's a statement which has come out from Boeing as well. It says, safety is Boeing's #1 priority, and we have full confidence in the safety of the 737 MAX. We understand that regulatory agencies and customers have made decisions that they believe are most appropriate to their home markets. We'll continue to engage with them to ensure that they have the information needed to have confidence in operating their fleets. The United States Federal Aviation Administration is not mandating any further action at this time, and based on the information currently available, we do not have any basis to issue any new guidance to operators. Well, joining us now, Captain S.S. Panesar, the ex-Director of Flight Safety and Training at Indian Airlines, and Jitendra Bhargav, the former Director of Air India as well. Captain Panesar, let me come to you first. Do you believe that the MAX aircraft, the Boeing 737 MAX aircraft over Indian skies need to be grounded?
Oh, well, let me tell you one thing. It's a new technology aircraft which has been come from the Boeing industry. And this aircraft, they have got after this crash the digital flight data recorder of the Ethiopian crash and the cockpit voice recorder. We have to wait for the analysis of the Boeing company, what they come up, because in this digital flight data recorder, more than 170 parameters are recorded. Even it tells you whether the pilot has properly seated in the cockpit or not. What I mean to say is, unless the Boeing company, which does the analysis of this crash, it's premature for us to ground the aircraft for the DGCA. DGCA is not the manufacturer now, but they can issue any advisory circular for safety. Now, if other countries have grounded, we should not go by them, but they have done it. I'll go by the manufacturer because they are responsible for giving me the safe aircraft.
Okay.
And it should be 100% safe from passenger point of view. Yeah.
Mr. Bhargav, do you agree that, it's up to the DGCA to decide, or do you believe that, we possibly know better than all of these other countries with their decades of experience in civil aviation?
Vishnu, let's look at the facts first. There are about 350 of these aircraft flying with 54 operators around the world. At the last count, 14 carriers had taken a decision to temporarily ground them, which means 40 other operators are still flying. Now, DGCA is the regulatory agency, we all know about it. SpiceJet, as you very rightly said, is the only Indian operator flying this aircraft. Now, no airline will be foolish enough to put an aircraft in operation if they have an iota of chance of a risk to safety of a flight. The cost to an airline in the event of an untoward incident is humongous. So nobody is going to be taking a chance. Likewise for the DGCA. Now, very clearly, if there are 14 operators not operating, let's not forget 40 are. And amongst those are American Airlines, Southwest Airlines, some European carriers, etc. Now, DGCA cannot be asked to say because some countries have done it, it must follow suit. DGCA, as is the established practice, will be in parleys with FAA in America, with the Boeing company, and based on what their advice is, they will go about it. Let's go back to 2011-12, when Dreamliner aircraft had problems. Japan took a unilateral decision to ground it. Air India was still flying those aircraft. But once FAA took a decision to ground Dreamliners, Air India followed suit based on DGCA's directive. So there is an established precedent, there is an established practice, and we must honor it. But to get into a narrative that because they have done it, we must do it, I don't think is the right way. It's creating uncalled for panic in travelers' mind. As one of the tweets you just put it across shows, why should there be? Airlines are responsible, DGCA is responsible for safety. Would they take a chance? The answer is no.
Okay, let's see if that answer actually is something which Sangeeta Suneja can accept. She's the mother of Captain Suneja, the Lion Air pilot who actually died in that Lion Air crash. That was the previous crash of that Boeing 737 MAX aircraft in Indonesia. Ma'am, thank you very much for speaking to us. A few months back, you lost your son in this horrific crash which took place. There's been another crash now. Do you believe there's something wrong with the aircraft?
Hello, yeah, absolutely. I just see, I've already actually stated earlier also on this subject that this is ruthless ambition, and any sort of development or business goal, if we carry on with this kind of carelessness, it is not good for anyone, none of us, not for the society, not for the any country or any airline.
Yep.
So it is something we have not come up collectively to give a solution to it. It is something that we have, there's no cohesion in our thinking, you know. As a parent, I see, because I've been left behind from what is happening. It is a repetition for me. I see I could see the facts which were eventually, going to happen. Like it is something which I was already anticipating. This is something going to happen, I was crossing my fingers. I had put my fears across that the regulator, first of all, the government, the regulators, the airlines, the passengers,
yes,
the crew,
yes,
all of us, the parents of the crew,
yes,
they all have to come together and question. We have not done our homework. We have, there is, these days, facts have been distorted. Like any information is a knowledge, but the media, how it is paid and sponsored, and the facts are, actually they are just washed away. The actual facts do not come into the limelight.
But ma'am, tell me one thing. Mrs. Suneja, I understand what you're hearing. I understand what you're hearing, and I thank you for your courage in coming on this program, because it's just been a few months since you lost your son. What did Boeing tell you when this took place, or did they at all get in touch with you? Did Lion Air get in touch with you to explain what went wrong?
Absolutely not. It is Boeing. No, absolutely no. There was no message from that company. It is. They have not sent me any message, or in fact, as such, Boeing is evading all facts. I see a very arrogant company. It is. I've been working with Air India for almost 33 years, and we have both the fleet. We have mixed fleet, but suddenly, whenever there's a new fleet coming up, new aircraft is bought by any airlines, there are glitches, of course, but this sort of this is a gross, it's a gross glitch on part of the company. Not only the company, FA, and we've been looking up to these guys, so highly, and we take everything except the way they just offer, and we just take it. We are a gullible society, we are third world countries. We have taken them, accepted them blindly.
Okay, ma'am, one moment. I'm coming back to you in a second, but I want to go back.
We all wake up.
I want to go back to Captain Panesar. Captain Panesar, that's the voice of a mother whose son was killed piloting that Lion Air crash. He was an experienced pilot, and he encountered something which you did not refer to earlier, Captain Panesar, that there are reports and allegations of there being a design defect in the Boeing 737 MAX specific to some software related issues, that perhaps in its flight, in certain regimes, the aircraft believes that it is stalling, it tries to autocorrect, and in the process of that automatic correction, there are situations when a pilot can be overwhelmed that could have resulted in the Lion Air crash, and the worry is something like this could have affected the Ethiopian crash as well. And the further allegation is that Boeing has not done enough to actually keep airlines informed earlier on. So how can we forget about this history as we say that, you know, DGCA is looking at it and it will all be okay?
No, first of all, I'm sorry to know this lady, that her son died and all that, very sad. But let me tell you one thing. After every crash, the digital flight data recorder, voice recorders are studied. They come out with the methods to how to improve the standard of flying and standard of pilots and the aircraft, if there is any rectification required. And the subsequent training is given to the pilots. In India, Indian Airline, 1990, A320 crashed in Bangalore. 60 people died in that.
But the A320
that was
was
the fault
grounded,
of the
sir.
pilot, not
Sir,
the
wasn't
aircraft.
the A320
but the
grounded
government
for a long
grounded it
time?
for 6 months.
Sir, wasn't the A320 grounded in Indian Airlines service?
6 to 8 months.
Yes, sir. So all we are saying over here is that shouldn't this aircraft be grounded until such time as there is clarity, Captain Panisar? No one is saying it shouldn't fly again.
No, it was grounded. It was grounded for the aircraft is airworthy. It was flying all over the world, but only in India they crashed because of political reasons. It was the fault of the pilot who crashed there. The inquiry also conducted, they say it was the pilot's fault, not the aircraft. But now how can we ground the aircraft unless we know the cause of the aircraft?
No, but then
I don't go by the other countries, what they have done.
I find that logic, Captain Panisar, slightly problematic, and I'll bring that question to Mr. Bhargav. The opposite perspective is that what are we waiting for? Some sort of other incident? Shouldn't we, in the interests of safety, ground a particular aircraft and then clear it? Not clear it and keep it flying in the interim period. What comes first? Safety first? Precautions first? Or do we just let a plane keep flying? What comes first?
Vishnu, it's a standard practice in the aviation industry that if you have an iota of doubt with regard to safety, you will not fly. And that is what is airworthiness all about.
Correct.
But the question is, will we in television studios or people on the street or a passenger tell an aviation industry when is aircraft not going to fly? There are experts available, even if we don't have the requisite faith in DGCA for whatever it is. Let's not forget there is FAA, there is ESA in Europe. Those agencies haven't taken a call as yet. As I said earlier, if 14 operators are not flying at the moment, 40 operators are. And these include American Airlines, Southwest Airlines. Let the analysis take place. We can't be jumping to conclusion and say, this is what happened in the Lions Air case.
Mr. Bhargav, I'm not jumping to a conclusion, and I'll tell you why. I'm just making a simple point. Maybe this Boeing 737 MAX aircraft, given the legacy of Boeing as a pioneer in aviation, is something which will get sorted out. And perhaps you're entirely correct that the Ethiopian crash may not be linked to this issue at all. But if there is an iota of doubt, in this particular case, there isn't an iota, there is a mountain of doubt which exists. Shouldn't we, on the basis of precaution, just keep the aircraft grounded? For example, the 787 Dreamliner, there was a problem with the battery, the lithium-ion batteries on board. What did airlines around the world do? They grounded the aircraft. They fixed the aircraft. There was no crash in that particular case. Why can't we do the same over here? Sort it out,
Vishnu,
rule out a problem, and then get it flying again.
Vishnu, you're overlooking one point here.
Yes, sir.
The battery issue did crop up with Japan Airlines, and they had the first instance and the second instance, and then they decided. It was in subsequent weeks that FAA took a call and said the Dreamliners need to be grounded worldwide.
Fair
and
point.
Air India was one of the carriers which grounded the flight. So it wasn't an instant reaction, and what we are seeking today is that 48 hours after the Ethiopian air crash, you all want the 787 MAX aircraft to be grounded. Leave the call on FAA like we did it in the case of 787.
No, sir, but there's also, sir, there's the UK regulator. there's the UK regulator, which has almost or as much of the same credibility as
I have a
UK
question.
is a small part of the European Union.
as the FAA, sir. The UK regulator is a major international regulator. Singapore Airlines has banned the movement of the aircraft in its airspace, let alone operations by Singaporean Airlines. The Australia has banned it as well, right? So I know, when I take your point when you say, but there are many more airlines and many more countries still flying them. I accept that.
And it's
but
only
do we
for-
not
Vishnu,
have?
it's
But is
only
that good
48
enough?
hours at the moment.
Yes.
No, but
It's
let's
not a
look
very
at it.
it's not a very
You see,
big period of
it's
time.
a gradual process. The black box would be studied, the voice recorder will be studied, and they will come to a conclusion in an inform.
Okay,
But
okay.
you can't ask for a decision to be taken suo moto and say from certain hours on a certain day all planes will stand grounded. No airline, let me repeat here, would try and put an aircraft in the skies if it has an iota of doubt regarding airworthiness.
Sir, there's a counterpoint to that argument, Mr. Bhargav, as well, and the
Are
counterpoint.
there any simulators?
Yes,
MAX simulators?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, ma'am. Go ahead with your point. I'll come back to Mr. Bhargav in a moment and have my argument with him. But
Yeah,
ma'am,
I have doubt.
But
like
ma'am, go ahead.
DGCA yeah, I have doubts that the children, I mean the young boys, I just find them as my own children. Are they been, have they had the simulator session or training on the for Boeing 737 MAX?
So, ma'am,
Have
what the
they,
DGCA has done, what the
like
DGCA
those
has
scenarios
done,
have been
ma'am,
created.
ma'am, the DGCA has ensured yesterday, as part of a directive, that only pilots with a certain number of hours of experience on the 737 MAX can operate the aircraft in India. So that's something which they actually have done. But continue with your point, ma'am.
Two pilots with 8,000 and 6,000 hours and impeccable records, they have crashed. So it is not about that. It is an unknown devil which they are trying to establish. Boeing is doing a research, and on that they are developing the software. I've been working with automation of airline processes, and I very clearly understand if we have patch releases, that's fine, but this is an unknown devil which they are not even aware of. So something which they are not aware of, so they have not established. They are going to do a patch release, and they are still selling aircrafts, handing over new aircrafts fleet, for which the patch release has yet to be done, and they are still selling. See the ruthlessness of the company. They are so much into business that human life has no value, that they are just moving on, and they are developing a product which is the raw product.
Okay.
This was not it has a design flaw where there are only two angle, there are two, this thing, what do you call, this angle of attack, if it is erroneous, it was not, the MCAS has only two, this thing, checks that, otherwise sensors.
I think that's an important
All the
point, and I want to talk to Captain. I want to Captain.
The value.
Right. I want to go back to Captain Panesar for a moment about the technical aspect of this, because this is important. Captain Panesar, in a certain scenario, when the aircraft, the Boeing 737 MAX, feels or detects that it may be entering into a stall-like situation, it takes a couple of corrective measures by itself. For various circumstantial reasons, we have found out in the case of the Lion Air episode that the decisions of the automated system may perhaps be questionable. The way to rectify it is for the pilot to actually manually override the entire process. That's not necessarily something that crews around the world are very well trained on.
Certain height.
So therefore, Captain Panesar, the fact is, in this Ethiopian crash, the plane crashed just about 6 minutes after taking off. Could there not be serious questions which could be raised about whether the pilots are properly trained, or whether the process of manual override is actually as easy as it sounds?
I agree with you, but the question is, getting serious about the crash is fine, but unless we know the cause, exact cause of the crash, you see, grounding the aircraft doesn't make it safe. Grounding the aircraft doesn't make it safe. It will make safe only after you do the investigation. Digital flight data, I'm sure Boeing company won't be waiting. They must be burning midnight oil to find out the reason of the crash. They won't be sitting idle. And they must come out, I think they will come out within few hours, maybe a day or two, to come out with the cause of the crash and the rectification taken. And also one of the panelists said the pilots are trained on simulator. They are trained very well on the simulator, technical, all the aspects of it, then only they are put on the aircraft flights.
On
But
Boeing
grounding the
737
aircraft
MAX
does not make it
simulator.
safer. Safety.
Okay, okay.
Safety lies with the manufacturer who has to come out, tell us what's the cause of the crash and what is the rectification required.
Okay,
if it is a pilot
Captain,
fault, we will improve the training.
One second, Captain Panesar, Captain Panesar, 1 second, Mr.
Yeah.
Bhargav, you make your point before that. Before you make your point, let me just read out where all this aircraft has been suspended. Singapore, 737 MAX operations suspended. China, the largest aviation market, second largest possibly in the world, all 737 MAX 8 aircraft grounded, not today but yesterday. Australia, 737 MAX 8 aircraft grounded. Ethiopia, of course, all the remaining 4 737s grounded, MAX aircraft. Indonesia, grounded. Mexico, temporary suspensions. Argentina, Aerolíneas Argentinas has temporarily suspended. South Africa, Comair has grounded. South Korea, Eastar Jet has suspended. The Cayman Islands, Cayman Airways has grounded them. This is just an initial list. The United Kingdom, I believe, has also, since this gone ahead, and also Norway now has said that these aircraft need to be grounded. Why are they all doing this, sir? Surely they wanted to, surely they would have listened to the FAA as well and kept flying. But why have they all taken this decision?
Vishnu, there is, as I said earlier, 48 hours after the accident,
Mr. Bhargav,
various
go ahead,
countries at various stages are taking a call. You can't say that what DGCA took a decision yesterday is going to stand in the next 72 hours. DGCA, in the light of new information furnished to it, may revise the decision. Now, I'm not going to be saying that, as I said earlier, 40 operators are still flying this aircraft. 60% of the total 737 MAX 8 fleet is still operational. There is investigation on. Having worked in the airline industry, we know the systems. But one thing, Vishnu, allow me to say, it was very disheartening to hear from Mrs. Suneja that Boeing company hasn't contacted her post the Lion Air accident. This is the least that Boeing company could have done to a mother of a pilot who was a victim, who died in a plane crash because there was a glitch in the aircraft. And we all know that Lion Air crash, there was a major kind of a miss. They did not include in the manual how to go about for a pilot, hence those pilots weren't trained. And this legal case is on the United States. I'm sure she's going to get full justice once the legal case is settled in America.
Well, ma'am, I'd like to thank you, Mrs. Suneja, very much for actually joining us and having the courage to come forward and express your concerns. And we will not forget about you as we talk about aviation safety. And thank you so much once again. And I'd like to thank Mr. Bhargav as well for joining us, and the captain for being with us, Captain Panesar. We'll take a short break. I think this is a moment in which the international aviation community needs to reflect what's the right step ahead. We in India certainly do. It's a complicated issue, as Mr. Bhargav mentions, and there may be no easy choices. But what comes first, safety or the sense that you may be okay flying this aircraft or any aircraft? It's a difficult choice. We'll leave it for the moment and come back with more.